Buenas tardes and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Financial Resilience Charla. The charla will cover topics that we have been hearing so much about in the news and among our own friends and colleagues. What does the financial landscape look like for us now, more than 2 years into the pandemic, and how is it impacting everyone? Since the onset of the pandemic, we have been living in the middle of unpredictability and impact by factors we cannot control. And today there is still so much we cannot control, but what we can do is educate ourselves and make smart financial choices to set ourselves and our families for success. Besides hearing from those who work in the financial industry, we will also hear from members of our community that share their own personal stories and experiences on financial resilience. As a reminder, this is not an AARP hosted event. However, as an event sponsor, AARP always recommends that you consult your financial tax advisor or lawyer for advice regarding your personal situation. On the logistical note, please use the chat box to ask any questions, raise any concerns, or give us energy. Just make sure it is set to all audience and not to the default of panelists, because we want everyone to hear you. We will try to answer all your questions at the end of the program in the chat and in a follow-up email that will include all of our resources that were shared today. So let's get started. We would like to welcome Maggie Castro, who is the Senior Audience Manager for Hispanic Latino Strategies at AARP's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Let's welcome Maggie.
Buenas tardes, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Maggie Castro, the Senior Audience Manager with AARP's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I am extremely proud to be here on behalf of AARP to talk about the financial planning and ways that we can build more financially resilient future for all of us. I also have the great privilege of serving my community in New York on those same topics. So as the head of household and a working professional, I understand the importance of juggling multiple ventures and multiple tasks. So proper planning is really important, especially for those unexpected moments. There have been times in my life, as I'm sure there have been times in yours, where situations have come up that we did not account for. The pandemic is a perfect example. It created a ripple effect that found its way to our economy, the job market, and our own personal financial situations. Almost 3 years later, and we still find ourselves experiencing the impact of the global pandemic. Unemployment rates have increased, and finding work has become harder than ever before, but especially for the older Hispanic, Black, and women workers. Many are still struggling to pay back student debt, and more than 20% of student loans are held by people over 50. But even amidst all these financially trying times, optimism and hope are proving to be a shining light. AARP took a survey asking working adults about personal finances and found that 52% of respondents said they believe their financial situation will improve a year from now. Accomplishing this starts with the right support by listening to financial experts and making use of the resources available to us today, so we can take those steps toward taking control of our financial future. And one available tool that we'd like to talk about today is the Aarp Money Map, which was designed to help people get their finances back on track. And it helps to create a step-by-step plan to manage those unplanned expenses. It creates a payback strategy for all kinds of debt, and it maps out those action plans to track those real financial goals you may have. Another tool that we have is the Savvy Student Loan Debt Repayment Tool, created by AARP to connect our community with information on how to pay back those student loans. It offers educational resources on forgiveness programs, loan services, and so much more. It's resources like these, coupled with expert, tangible advice that can help us all become much more financially resilient. So today, you'll have the good fortune of hearing from experts like the ones I mentioned earlier, and they're leaders in their financial space who have experience in navigating savings and planning in the times of financial strain. You'll also hear from members of our community, and that they will share some personal stories of financial resilience. So don't forget to check out the Money Map at aarp.org/Money Map after today's presentation. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy. Gracias.
Thank you, Maggie, for sharing all of AARP's resources and for being here today. Next up, we have Abby Zapote from Washington, D.C., who is the Senior Advisor to the Acting Commissioner at the Social Security Administration. Take it away, Abby.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to HHF and AARP for hosting today's important conversation. Today, we talk about financial resilience, and financial resilience can be found in many ways, from learning how to budget to learning how to invest. And it can even be a learning moment from seeing our parents talk about finances and or seeing them struggle to make ends meet as kids. I'm sure the colleagues that will follow me will share some great resources, tools, and strategies. However, I will talk to you all today about understanding your Social Security number a bit better, and we'll share some information regarding survivors' benefits. I also want to share that financial resilience can also be found through being proficient in understanding bureaucratic processes. I will share that coming to the Social Security Administration, I've learned so much about these various processes and really helping the communities that we serve understand a little bit more about how they can be proficient in these matters. I do also want to share that through the President's Executive Order on Racial Equity, we are looking at opportunities to review our policies and programs to assess and address systemic barriers to make it easier for the public to access these benefits and services. With that said, I want to share some background information first. I grew up as an undocumented kid, and honestly, I dreamed of getting a Social Security number. Number one, because it would mean that I would have legal status, and number two, because it would mean that I could legally work. However, it took me until I started working in policy to better understand how my Social Security number worked. And now that I work at SSA, I have an immense understanding of the agency, not only as a service agency, but also as a data agency as well. We pay over $1 trillion in benefits each year to more than 70 million people. Our programs help retirees, people with disabilities, people who are widowed, and their families. And our goal is to serve everyone who is eligible for programs, which are all tied to their Social Security number. You use your Social Security number to get a job and pay taxes. I'm sure you all see the FICA taxes that are in each of your paychecks. And we actually use that information to track your earnings while you're working. And we use your earnings record to determine what benefits you're eligible to receive. This could be retirement benefits when you're ready to retire. This could be disability benefits in case anything happens to you while you are working. But again, today I will share a little bit more about survivors' benefits. And as you work and pay taxes, you earn Social Security credits. And these credits go towards any of the benefits that I just mentioned. In 2022, you earn 1 credit for each $1,510 that you earn, up to a maximum of 4 credits per year. The amount of money needed to earn 1 credit usually goes up every single year. And I want you to remember that to qualify for most benefits at the Social Security Administration, most people need 40 credits or a total of 10 years of work. And now that you understand a little bit more about how we calculate your earnings record and how credits work, I want to share more about survivors' benefits. And the reason why I chose this topic today is because we know the devastating effects that the pandemic has had on our day-to-day, the economy, but most importantly, our families. As of July 9th, 2022, 1,135,577 people have died from COVID-19. Latinos account for 16% of these deaths. However, based on population rates, COVID-19 disproportionately affected Latinos, Black Americans, and American Indian and Alaska Native populations. I state these devastating numbers because so many families saw the passing of loved ones during these last 2 years. I also share that because SSA can be a great resource for those eligible for survivors' benefits. You may be entitled to receive a survivor's benefit under the following circumstances. If you are at age 50 and you have a disability, if you are at age 60 and you are eligible for retirement benefits, however, the benefit amount may be reduced. At any age, if you have a child under your care who is under age 16 or who became disabled before age 22, and or if you are widowed and have remarried after the age of 60. We share these specific ages because that's how we calculate some of these benefits. Now, I think the crowd that might be joining us today might be a little bit on the younger side. However, this information could be helpful whether this is your parent, whether this is a grandparent, or if you are a young spouse who may have lost someone during the pandemic. And actually, I will share that this is not just if they died from COVID-19, but if they may have passed away for any other reason. These benefits are here for you and for your families. Additionally, this has been a more recent development that surviving same-sex partners and spouses previously excluded from receiving Social Security survivors benefits may now qualify. If you were in a same-sex relationship with a partner or a spouse who passed away, you may qualify for benefits based on your partner's or spouse's record. You could qualify if the following are true. Number one, if you would have been married at the time of your partner's death, if unconstitutional state laws hadn't prevented you from doing so, or if you would have been married longer, if not for unconstitutional state laws that prevented you from marrying earlier. As I said, we are looking at these opportunities as a way to make sure that we're providing equitable services and benefits to those who may have previously not been eligible for this benefit. And as I mentioned before, this monthly benefit is particularly important for young families with children. The younger a person is, or the spouse is, the fewer credits they must have for their family members to receive survivors benefits. If you, a family member or a parent, is a widow or a widower or surviving divorced spouse, they can call us at 1-800-772-1213 to request an appointment. Again, that phone number is 1-800-772-1213 to request an appointment at one of our field offices. Folks could also go to a field office and request an appointment. However, we do ask that if you do want to go to a field office, that you go to our online site to see which documents you need to take. And that's at www.ssa.gov/benefits/survivors. We want to make sure that you are prepared to go to that field office with all of the documentation that you need. And lastly, I want to share, if you are part of an organization who wants to help the Latino community learn more about these benefits, you can contact me at abigail.zapote@ssa.gov to join one of our stakeholder groups to be able to share more information that we're wanting to share with many communities across the country. Again, my email is abigail.zapote@ssa.gov. And I look forward to working with you and ensuring that we provide access to benefits and services to Latino communities everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Abby, and for sharing that important information around Social Security and the survivor's benefit, and of course, for sharing your contact information. We will have this recording available, so we will be sharing all the resources shared over email as well. So up next, we have Orly Pacheco, who is calling from New York City and is a wealth manager at ARS Capital Advisors. Take it away, Orly.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you, Abby. That was really phenomenal. Those tidbits are things that we as advisors are always trying to gather in front of our clients and make them understand. And it's very difficult, you could say, situation sometimes when you're talking about moments of such. And as well, I looked at the resources, Maggie, that you put together, and those are really good at AARP. So everyone, if you haven't had a chance to, please, at the end of the call, look at the AARP resources. Definitely do reach out to Abby. I think there were great conversations. Resiliency as a whole, just for you to think about the following. During the pandemic, people have not had the best of luck during the pandemic. And as you stated before, the Latino community suffered the most. I would say to you, they suffered along the people of color a lot more than other groups of the demographics really as a whole. And it came to unfortunate moments of something that I would say improper planning. And I'll quickly give a quick backstory of how I got to where I'm at today in the financial services sector and my trajectory throughout certain places. My father was first came to this country. My mother came to this country, both from Ecuador, back in the 60s. And my father became a very, very known contractor in New York City, the East End of Long Island, and Palm Beach, Florida as well, too. Places that wealth really, really are concentrated in, especially here on the East Coast. My father ran a multi-million-dollar company and was known very much so for doing so. Unfortunately, at his end, he ended up dying in a nursing home with no assets and no generational wealth to transfer. I was in banking. I started in banking back in 1999. I took 8 years in the military, and I came back to banking again after that point. And I saw the effect of what happened without a proper plan. And I made it a personal mission at that point to come back into this space to work with the private client all over again. So I truly understand where we're coming from. Those numbers and statistics are completely real, and it takes a proper plan to be in place. Resiliency is the key word here. Resiliency means planning. I'll talk a little about the market as well too now. I think in that scope, there's a lot of bad news obviously out there right now. Lower unemployment, the numbers of unemployment are not looking favorable. We're seeing interest rates rise, which means it will be a lot more difficult for our community to get credit in order to buy big purchase items such as homes, cars, and other things that really generate wealth. Okay. Now, the last part of this conversation too is the international slowdown of goods, consumer goods, and other products. And once we as a market feels an impact, especially the United States, feels an impact of a recession, the other parts of the world will follow. And they're starting to get that feel as well too. It's no surprise at all that this is this crunch of what's happening. But what can you do today and what can be done tomorrow especially is that you plan, okay? There are things about knowing where your investments are. Under the mattress, not the good story. Most of our community does that though. Have it somewhere with either a bank that's trusted and notable, or even an advisor, the best place to be. Some of our community members have those type of assets to sit with someone like myself that look like them, that came from their same background, the same community, understands where they're from, but also just that they don't get it. You know, I saw one of Maggie's posts about educational savings vehicles, and that's phenomenal because at the end of the day, if the generations passed wealth on to others, these student loans would be as high as what our community sees. Other communities, because I do work with not just Latinos, predominantly I work with the Jewish community, the Italians, and everyone else today here in market, but a lot more the Anglo-Saxon community I work with. And they're very much known for being able to transfer wealth by paying for education, transferring of assets, learning how to mitigate taxes really as a whole, and how to gift as a thing. If we make one commitment to ourselves and to our generation is to give more to the next one. This generation currently right now is known as being as one of the most philanthropic, but I also say too, do not forget that philanthropy starts at home. Give to those within the need that need it the most, which is your families. We also, when I say this here holistically, talk about Social Security. And Abby, the points that you drove home, I was so in line with it. You know, when you think about what Social Security means, how many credits do you need in order to get Social Security? What are some of moments of pivot you can say that one can get Social Security out of traditional means, such as disability, such as a spouse of retirement age that's on Social Security and qualifies for it, that the spouse could take it. Survivor's benefits. We do discuss that with our clients as well too, and we keep those in mind every single day. One of the things here as well as I gathered my thoughts here before our conversation was the need of not just health insurance, because obviously health insurance is key and crucial during these type of moments, but also the need for life insurance, of coverage, of covering yourself and taking on a risk that an insurance company could take on. There's nowhere else in the world that you could say, hey, if I pay a company X dollars, a multiple of that amount, they will pay my family if something happens to me. And it's tax-free for the most part. Of course, ask your advisor about those questions. But there's nowhere else in the world that could be done. And that really niche business called life insurance as a whole, I would definitely tell everybody, if you don't have it, consider it. It's one of the biggest planning tools available. And actually one of the most asked about questions when you think about the following. Oh, Juan from down the block passed away. First question asked, did he have life insurance? Hello, Yes, he has to. I hope he had it. If he didn't, I think that generation to follow and his friends around him and that family will consider it and look at life insurance just a little bit differently. So I definitely ask everyone in the crowd, if you don't have a policy, then on your own, definitely think about it, look at it carefully. The last thing I'll quickly say before I wrap up here is that the psychology of how we do financial planning as a whole has changed. And I want you to think about the following with me. We have started to look at, and this is the industry as a whole, the CFP, the Commercial Financial Planning industry, has started to look at different ways of attitudes, values, and biases, and we're trying to break those down. So in other words, you'll be seeing more folks like myself in front of you, the public, every single day. Know that it's a hard push into diversity and inclusion. Know that we're trying to get into there. Just know that please work with us as we break through those barriers. And I hope that if someone is looking for a career in financial services, or is interested in any of those topics we discussed today and need to talk to somebody or a referral, just let me know. Be more than glad to do so.
Thank you so much for sharing, Orly, and for sharing your expertise and, sharing the importance of creating generational wealth. We see that's very important here as well. So up next, we have our very own Claudia Rivas, who is from San Francisco. She is an HHF board member and senior financial advisor, senior vice president at Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. Take it away, Claudia.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon from my end. It's always a pleasure to be here with everyone and try to share some of the knowledge that we're passing on to people in these times. I want to talk a little bit about the markets, just so that we can talk about how that relates to things that you should be considering. So first of all, the markets are really trying to look for signs of stability to bottom out and to create a new base. So we're going to have ongoing volatility, but at the same time, what happens is that global equities are still actually showing the support for higher nominal growth. Why? Because we still continue to have healthy corporate profits and a strong consumer and an improvement in service sectors, at least in the near term. That doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of any of the volatility that's happening, but there is a very strong concern that we'll be in a recession by 2023 or even sooner. And some may argue that we're already in one, depending on who you are. I always tell my friends that when they ask me about the recession, I said, unfortunately, recession always affects the most vulnerable of people. And so we have to be mindful of that and think about what opportunities are out there. So going back to the mixed data that we're getting in terms of the markets, since we have a strong economy still, and we're at the same time, we're also showing that there's a measure of recession, which by technical terms means 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP. We have been looking at what opportunities lie in this volatility. So one of the things that we want to think about is, as consumers, because we are spending more for less, what should we look at in terms of our own individual balance sheet? And when I say that, I always tell people to look at themselves as if they were a company themselves. So take an inventory of your assets, meaning your home, what interest rates you're paying. It's a little bit hard now to refinance because the Fed has been increasing rates. And that does affect your ability to borrow, as Orly had mentioned earlier, because it is more expensive, but it could be that maybe it's not. And so that's something that you're going to want to consider is refinancing, depending on where you're at. And we're actually still seeing people, maybe it's a San Francisco thing, but at least in the Bay Area, we are seeing people continuing to buy homes. Now, because of the interest rates getting a little bit more expensive, they're able to buy less homes, but nonetheless, it is an important asset to hold as we continue to figure out where we're going to lie within real estate. The other thing in terms of assets is it's so crucial that we continue that, regardless of what the market is doing, that we continue to invest in your 401ks or your IRAs. I've been talking to a lot about to people about how well the markets did last year, in the past couple of years, and even in the past decade. And this is a very unexpected, volatile year, but it happens. It's part of being in the markets. It's part of being in business cycles. So take it as an opportunity. In fact, if you're young, this is literally some of the best time for you to continue to grow your wealth. Because if you liked equities last year and the past couple of years at the prices that they were at, you should be continuing to be interested in the surviving companies that are going to thrive, that have strong balance sheets, that are going to offer you a cushion in this inflationary environment. Another thing that you want to think about in terms of what's going to happen in the next few months is we are going to see upticks in unemployment. They're already starting to inch higher, and also layoffs. So one of the things that I'd recommend is, again, take it as an opportunity. Think about careers that maybe are inflationary proof, or that tend to do well during recession. In the space that we're in, we actually, this is when the demand comes higher because people need help and guidance. And so financial services could be a very unique and lucrative career if that's something that you're interested in. That's something that I've been also helping with recruitment. So if you, like Orly mentioned, if you're interested in any of the careers, I have a lot of networks where we can help plug you in and see if there's opportunities so that you can continue to build your wealth, because this is a really great area to continue thriving. And another thing that I feel like has been really important is just because there's so much negative news, I think your mental health has to be also taken care of. So if you're worried about what's happening and you don't know about your job, try to think 10 steps ahead, which is something that our community is actually really resilient in, because we have to. A lot of times we haven't had the opportunity to think about what could happen, because we have to just do things as they come. But if you can, think 10 steps ahead and think about how you could prepare your resume. Reach out to us. We're happy to help you. Let's see. Another last thing is, just because I'm running out of time, is please also think about your own spending, your needs versus your wants. If you are sacrificing, maybe not buying very expensive shoes, please continue to use that leftover money, even if it's a little bit. Just keep investing, keep saving. And that's all I have. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. Please don't live in fear. There's always opportunities, no matter what economy we're in. You just have to see them. Thank you so much.
As always, it is a pleasure having you join us, Claudia. And thank you so much for sharing your take on the current state of the markets, the importance of mental health, and practicing needs versus wants. Now we will have Carlos Vera from Los Angeles, who is a co-founder of Pay Our Interns, join us. Take it away, Carlos.
Thank you so much, Jessica. It's always great to be doing events with HHF. So hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Marvera. I am the co-founder of Pay Our Interns. And I'm just going to give a little more background about kind of the story of the org and some of the challenges and opportunities I've learned along the road. I founded Pay Our Interns 5 years ago when I had done 3 unpaid internships myself. For those that don't know, in today's basically labor market, you need to intern to get hired, right? Like most 8 out of 10 employers want college graduates with experience. How do you get that experience? You have to intern. Unfortunately, in a lot of sectors, particularly like government, nonprofit work, arts, media, it's mostly unpaid. And that disproportionately actually impacts a lot of Latinos, Black students, and other racial groups. And ultimately, when you're kind of locked out of those opportunities, it's very tough to enter these careers and actually build wealth. So 5 years ago, I quit my job and I started Pay Our Interns. Probably not the best financial decision I made, but I started Pay Our Interns with less than $2,000. And the whole goal of the org was, how do we create equitable pathways across all sectors so that our institutions, whether it's government, the corporate world, philanthropy, actually reflects our communities, which right now is not the case. I started with Congress, and what I did financially was I was basically a server the first year and a half because I actually had no funding to start the organization. Usually the way that people do it is you get seed funding, you have a pitch, you get funders, and then you do the work. I did the total opposite, which I guess, like I said, things I don't recommend. And the struggle was real, I think, the first 2-3 years trying to raise funds. We were very lucky that like HHF stepped in. Tony and the whole team, they actually incubated us, which really was a game changer. And we started getting grants, and we're best known for having gotten Congress to pay their interns. But some of the lessons I've learned along the way that I think don't just apply in the nonprofit sector or entrepreneurship, but beyond is getting rid of the mentality that we need to be grateful for scraps. We know that Latinos tend to get, lower job offers, less funding in philanthropy. Actually, only 1% of all philanthropic money given across the United States goes to Latino orgs. So one of the lessons I had to learn was how to ask for more money. I remember going to a foundation and asking them for, I think, like $4,000 or $5,000. And the program officer, who was Latina, was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, Carlos. I just had someone, a white entrepreneur, come and ask for $250,000, and they got it. And you're here asking for $5,000. So that really kind of started putting things in perspective of how can we push ourselves. And obviously, I don't want to generalize because all our experiences, Latinos, are different. But as an immigrant, and at one point when my family struggled financially, it's really tough to think beyond tomorrow or a couple of months, right? It's really tough to do a strategic plan or plan 5 years ahead when the only mentality you've known is surviving, right? So how do you get out of that mentality? Our budget for pay our interns went from just 3 years ago, it was about $150,000 to now where it's almost $1 million a year. And part of it, I think, was changing our mentalities, speaking up, not being scared to ask for more. That is something that it's still difficult for me. I can plan big campaigns, but when it comes to money, it's still not easy. But having to learn some of these practices that sometimes we grew up with, I think is critical for financial resilience. In terms of pay our interns, we now, in 5 years, we've helped get $100 million appropriated for interns. In Congress, this past year, we got the White House, first time in history, the State Department, local state governments, nonprofits, and our work continues. And we're already seeing a direct impact because, nowadays, with how the economy is, with wage stagnation, for a lot of young people, they're working hard just to pay for school. So by paying them while they're interning, it allows them to basically survive while also be able to focus in school. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll be staying here for any questions or anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Carla, and for sharing the importance of speaking up and planning ahead strategically. Next up, we have our very own Jaime Lopez from the RGV, a past HHF National Youth Awardee and current Head of Business Development at Common, I believe. Take it away, Jaime.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Always a pleasure to be back with HHF. As Jessica mentioned, I'm Jaime Lopez, originally from far Texas in the Rio Grande Valley, where I was born and raised. I went to undergrad at Stanford. HHF was very gracious to help me with my studies because I won the Regional Youth Award and then later the National. So ever since then, I've been highly engaged with all HHF events, from alumni birthday parties to events like this. Nonetheless, speaking of financial resilience, coming from the poorest region in the country, the Rio Grande Valley, it was a huge change of pace for me to go to Stanford, which is practically a rich country club. It's very expensive, 4 years, even if you're there on a full tuition scholarship. I graduated in 2018 with a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering and have spent my career since then focusing on serving the Latino community in the US. For example, I spent a lot of time canvassing door to door in the neighborhoods of East Las Vegas for political campaigns and serving for Mayor Bowser here at the Office of Human Rights in Washington, D.C. But nonetheless, I'm here to talk about specifically on consumer banking for Latinos. So Latinos in the US pay around $30 billion in banking fees, either through overdraft, monthly minimum fees, remittances. Clearly, there's a lot of work to be done to bring that number down to zero. That's around $150 per Latino that could go towards putting food on the table or gas on their tank. My whole life now revolves around providing financial resilience tools for Latinos in the US. Seeing how uneven the playing field was in my previous working experience inspired me and my classmates from Stanford to found a virtual bank for Latinos in the US with zero fees. We were fortunate to have raised a very strong seed round of VC funding. And there's plenty of virtual banking options right now in the country with zero fees for all the other demographics, but there isn't one clear provider for that assisting the Latino market. Our bread and butter is recent immigrants, unbanked and underbanked Latinos who are overlooked by the government and big banks and are nonetheless massive contributors to the economy. We bank Latinos without social security numbers. They can create an account with an international passport. This is something most regional banks do as well. However, those are expensive accounts to maintain. In the near future, we're going to be looking to expand our services to lending, credit, remittances, et cetera, and provide a full suite of low cost to free tools for our community. We started with consumer banking because we believe that's the stickiest relationship and more personal relationship you can have in the financial markets, being the primary bank account to a consumer. But feel free to contact me separately with more questions about the topic. This is my biggest passion. And thank you so much, Aarp, for putting this together.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you, Jaime, and being part of all that we do. Now we will hear from Dinora Almos from Baltimore, who is funding president and CEO of Latino Education Advancement Fund. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Jessica. My name is Dinora Olmos, and I am the founding president of the Latino Education Advancement Fund. And thank you so much for inviting me. I am hearing all these resources, financial resources. I'm hearing all these situations. And while we are going through so much problems and economical situations after the pandemic, it is important for us to remember that we as parents, we really want to offer the best for our families, especially the best for our students, the best for our children in education. And with the pandemic, our children, our students, they really lost so much. And yes, we want them to have the best. And especially, when you want to give them the best and you are really scratching to make sure that you have the money to pay the rent, to pay the bills, it is hard because you want to send your children to summer programs. Right now, summer programs, everybody is in vacation or summer, and students are at home, and many of them, they are not doing anything. And parents would like to have them doing something and catch up with all the work that they lost, all the academic instruction that they have lost. However, I just wanted to talk to all of you parents that are listening today and who are here with me. I think that sometimes, in many situations, the challenge sometimes is our mindset. And the reason why I say that, because I also have children, and I also was in a lot of economic distress. And many times I got things in the mail, programs in the mail that they look so good, but they look so expensive, or they actually are expensive. And I see them, the advertising, and I immediately disregard them because I said, oh, I cannot afford this, so I better throw it away. I don't even want my children to see it because they will get excited. And they cannot go, right? And that is sad. And especially right now at these times, at these challenging moments when we are with so much restraining. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about things that we can do, things that the resources that are available that sometimes we don't know. Sometimes they are there, but we just can't find them. We can just touch them. And right now, for example, there are so many things going on for free. So many things. For example, the other day, Google is offering courses for 3, 6, and 9 months on computer science, on how to learn to coding, etc., etc. But unfortunately, again, not many families are on Lincoln. Not many parents are searching resources for our children, etc. And another thing is that many times we don't ask if it is offered financial aid. And that is important for all of us to know. Every time you see something, don't disregard it because it seems expensive. Go and call and ask. Listen to everything and ask, do you offer financial aid? There is financial aid and you can look into it. Believe me, there are many resources available and I am happy to offer the resources like the organization that I work with. We offer conferences, workshops, free of charge for you, for parents, that I can create information and give you information on programs, summer courses, conferences, workshops that you can help your children to succeed. So I really invite you to be resilient, to stay there, do not give up, and keep pushing. Keep pushing because, yes, we have to be resilient. And we know that, yes, we can do it. And yes, there are organizations like Latino Education Advancement Fund that I represent, that we can help you. We can help you to find those resources. We can help you to find those opportunities. We can help you to connect. We can help you to understand how the educational system works. In that way, you can be empowered and move forward and move on and get what you deserve. So thank you so much, Hispanic Heritage Foundation, for inviting me and being able to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dainora, and for joining us. And especially as you share the free resources companies like Google have available. We do have something in the works with IBM and Google that we are excited to share with our network soon. So please stay tuned. And so lastly, we will hear from Javier Solis from Silver Spring, MD, Maryland, who is the co-founder and Chief Financial Officer of Total Taxes Franchise. Take it away, Javier.
Gracias, Jessica. Thank you for inviting me. It is really interesting what together, and it will really serve as guide for many business owners in our community. That sometimes we think that there is nothing that we can do, but that's when the resilience, the Latino resilience, comes in. And you start reinventing so many things. My name is Javier Solis. I'm the co-founder of Total Taxes Franchise. Total Taxes is the largest Latino franchise of income tax preparation nationwide. We have right now close to 250 offices in 30 states. And country undocumented from Ecuador in 1989. My first tax season was in 1990, so I've been a few years into the industry. I went to the City University of New York, and as an undocumented immigrant, I had to double tuition. So my day was kind of 4 in the morning getting up, 6 in the morning opening a restaurant to work as a dishwasher, going through all the positions in that restaurant. At 2:30, I had a van in Manhattan, dropping me off envelopes to deliver in buildings in the city. Then at 5 p.m., I will go to college from 5 to 10. I wanted to take as many credits as possible because I was paying full tuition. And after, after 12 credits, it's the same tuition. So, and after college, I will go back to my building where I was the superintendent, getting all the garbage, cleaning up and making sure that the building was clean. I did that for 4 years until I graduated from college, and I started working for a state senator. And since then, since I got my papers and I graduated from my college, things changed. I had a full-time and a part-time, always 2 jobs, but I always kept my income tax practice since it was only from January through April. It wasn't something that I will spend all day or the whole year working. I opened my office because I used to do tax services in my apartment, but I opened it in 2000, my first office in Brooklyn, New York. And I did 50 tax returns, and I was all excited because it was my office, and I did it in my first office. By 2005, after 5 years, I had close to 3,000 clients, and all I did was to focus on the Latino market. Okay. In 2007, I created the first Latino franchise of tax preparation in the nation. It was called Los Taxes in the East Coast. We grew that brand in the East Coast until 2019, when I met my partners and we created Total Taxes franchise as the largest Latino franchise. 2019, we founded Total Taxes, and in 2020, we had the pandemic. Okay, so it was our first tax season in the middle of the season in March, when we were forced to close offices and to reinvent. We had to find ways to provide the services. I mean, we are fortunate and we are blessed that the income tax industry, it's practically the only industry that has no recession, because whether we like it or not, the government will still force people to file taxes. It's under the law, it's in the Constitution. And what they did back in 2020, and you remember, they extended the deadline to file taxes, but they didn't tell people, okay, don't file taxes for this year because of the pandemic. So we had to find ways to kind of do something else because we didn't have our offices open. Many of our franchisees were afraid of the pandemic, and but then the numbers of people dying was increasing every day, and so what we did is start doing picking up envelopes and tax documents in their homes. We will drop off the tax papers. We will e-file. We created in the matter of 2 weeks an application where they will send us all the tax information. It was encrypted. It was very secure. We didn't want people to send us anything by email because emails is not secure, or text or WhatsApp. We just wanted to make sure that all the documents were secure because during tax season is when people are victims of identity theft. So despite of having this pandemic and kind of giving us these obstacles to do our job, we didn't just took this as, okay, this is the life and we are not going to do anything. No, and that's the purpose of what we are talking about now. How resilient you are when things like that come to your life, when you are kind of in the middle of not knowing what to do and having the resources through other people, because we are not alone. I mean, right now, through the Hispanic heritage, you have a lot of information that you could get. And like them, there are other people that are the chambers were great resources, and a lot of other entities that will help us as business owners to move on and keep growing with our businesses. In 2020, we more than 2019. 2021, still, in spite of the pandemic, we improved our services throughout the franchise. We were able to do a lot of webinars with our franchisees where we will teach them the new resources, the new tools that we created for them. And they gave us a huge lesson as Latinos. You know, I mean, despite of having this powerful economic group with Latinos, close over 70 million Latinos, spending over $2 trillion in goods and services, you know, we still need to find ways to overcome any type of obstacles that we have in our lives. I was listening to one of the panelists that he was saying that, you know, he's afraid of doing certain things and or ask people for money, ask people for help. And I always say to people, I mean, the worst thing that they could do is say no. But if you don't ask, if you don't go overcome that fear of trying to develop your idea and putting together in that 5 years plan or that exit strategy with your business, you're not going to get it. Okay, this 1% of what we have in the U.S. It's not because, you know, I mean, yeah, it's true. We have several differences with the different social classes and the communities that we are being treated unfairly. We are, believe me that we are, and I've been there. I didn't know English. I was a victim of a lot of discrimination and all that stuff. But when I wanted to get something and I asked and they told me no, that was like something that they will insert in my body to do it faster, to do it twice harder, and show these people up there that despite of being a Latino, that I came undocumented and I didn't have a good English. I still have a broken English, but still that no was not enough for me. Okay, so to the point that right now we have a much bigger company that many people that were born here, a lot of our Anglos companies and franchises that are around me, they are still surprised. You know, how come there's a Latino in this industry when there is only white executives here? Every time that I go to these franchise forums, it's 1 or 2 Latinos there. So I did, you know, committed with the International Franchise Association to start building this gap among Latinos to become franchisors. So it's I guess, a commitment that we as Latino have for our community. It's not only about us creating something big and that's it, everything comes to our pocket. It's taking all this experience, all this resilience that we have gone through and making sure that the rest of our Latinos, our community, it's doing the same. They are doing exactly what I did many, many years and the same experience that we had with all this discrimination, but not doing it. It's not an option, okay? It's really continue getting it done. Knock one door, knock the other door, and they don't open, keep knocking, okay? But don't stop. The reason why we are where we are, it's because we stop. We get discouraged and we don't move on. You know, if you really want to get there, if you really want that exit strategy with your business, keep going, okay?
Thank you so much, Javier, for sharing your story. I know working from home, we'll get a lot of background noise, so you probably hear the paletero on my end, but I just want to quickly thank everyone for joining us. We have reached the end of today's charla. Thank you, Aarp, for making this charla possible, as well as other charlas this year on Amor and Salud. If you missed those charlas, those videos can be found on our YouTube channel. We also want to say a big thank you to all our speakers who were able to share their wisdom and resources with us. We will be sending an email out later with the charla link to rewatch, as well as all the valuable resources that have been shared by our speakers and ARP. Thank you all for joining and hope everyone has a good rest of their day.